Hello my lovely friends, it's Margaret, and it's time to nerd out about books. Time has passed as time is wont to do, and we are now in October, which means it is time for me to bring you my September wrap-up. In September, I got through a total of 7 books. I had planned to read 9 books in September, and because I wanted to shame myself, I figure if I tell you guys how badly I failed, I'll try and do better for next month, or at least start trying to keep my TBRs to a reasonable amount of books. I was supposed to read Paper Towns, Catwoman Soul Stealer, The Lightning Thief, The Hate U Give, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, Ace of Shades, The 13th Tale, Wonder Woman Rebirth Volume 5, and Aquaman Rebirth Volume 1. I got through 3 of those. I got through The Lightning Thief, The Hate U Give, and Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I am in the middle of Paper Towns, Wonder Woman Volume 5, and Catwoman Soul Stealer, and I didn't get to any of the rest of them. Let's get into the books that I did read. So, I read 5 5-star books, 1 3-star book, and 1 1-star book. And of those books, 4 of them were audiobooks and 3 were hard copy books. Now let's get into what you guys really came here for, and that is what books I actually read. My first read of September was Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. I read this for a buddy read with Dane Cobain over at Dane Reads. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it, because I remember it was one of the audiobooks that we read, and I listened to it again as an audiobook. I remembered very little of the original plot, but I don't remember being terribly impressed with it. But I was really impressed with what happened in Treasure Island. I do remember there's like one scene that I remembered, and that was the apple barrel scene. And then all of the rest of it, I don't know, maybe Treasure Planet has just wiped my memory of everything else, because Treasure Planet is clearly the superior version of Treasure Island. Treasure Island is about Jim Hawkins. His father runs an inn called the Admiral Benbow. And one day this pirate called Billy Bones kind of stomps in and takes up residence in their inn, and they think he's going to stay for a few days. He pays for like a week, and then he's there long enough that he dies. It's a few months, it's a few weeks, but what happens is when Billy Bones dies, several of his previous crewmates come looking for him because apparently he has a treasure map from their old pirate captain. Jim and his mom have already kind of absconded with that, and so Jim and his mom join up with like the local doctor and a local squire, and they go out to this treasure island to find out if the treasure is still there. This is where we get the infamous character of Long John Silver from, who absolutely is one of the most fun characters in literature. I mean, even as like kind of the bad guy, he is such fun. I did really like the like how colorful his characters were. He did a really good job of making each of his characters unique. There was a lot of talk about the Doctor, who is just a hoot. Like Long John Silver is so ridiculously memorable. You just have so many different characters from different places in life that are just like, they leave impressions on your mind, or at least they did this time. Another thing that I liked about it was just the pacing. It was a really fast-paced book. From the get-go, like, things are happening, people are dying, and like, it's crazy. As far as what I didn't like, I felt like the ending, I just felt like the ending kind of fizzled. It was a nice, like, kind of summary ending, and that was okay, but like, I just felt like it fizzled a little bit. So I was not quite as impressed with the ending as I could have been. The next book that I read was Never Fade by Alexandra Bracken. Now, just like the first book, The Darkest Minds, Never Fade got 5 freaking stars from me. It was so good. In the Darkest Minds universe, there was this disease that occurred, and basically if the children did not die from the disease, they got what are known as psi powers. The government has rounded up all of the remaining children and put them in these different camps, so you're either living in the camps or you are living on your own in hiding somewhere. Ruby was taken into a camp and classified as a green, which are the ones that are supposed to be really smart, and so she's been living her whole life as a green. However, stuff happens, and she finds out that her life is in grave danger, and so she takes a chance to escape from the camp, and the rest of the book is about her trying to evade capture. I really enjoyed this. I thought that it was really nice getting to see more of the characters, getting to see Ruby in a different setting and see all the sacrifices that she's made. I really thought she did a really good job of believable fallout from the first book. I highly recommend the series. I've enjoyed every single moment, and barring main character death, I don't think my opinion of the series is going to be going anywhere, budging from where it is anytime soon. soon. The next book I read is one of my favorite books of all time, and that is Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Book 1, The Lightning Thief. Look at this, gorgeous. This one, it got 5 out of 5 stars, because all of the Percy Jackson books have 5 out of 5 stars. The Lightning Thief is about Percy Jackson. He is a 12-year-old boy who has been in and out of school because trouble seems to follow him wherever he goes. Just weird things happen. Things explode. You never know what's going to happen with Percy Jackson is at your school. And so he has been kicked out of yet another school. So he's going home for the summer with his mom. But what he does not know is that he is actually a demigod, a half-blood. And so there are monsters after him, which explains a lot about his previous school attendance. Monster comes after them, and it's not good. He is whisked off to Camp Half-Blood, where he has to learn about this whole new world of Greek gods, while also dealing with the fact that he saw his mother dissolve into a pile of fiery light in front of him. Turns out, his dad and Zeus, the Lord of the Sky, are fighting. And it's up to him to make sure that they do not bring all of Western civilization down with them. Listen, if you have not read the Percy Jackson series, you don't know what you're missing. I love Rick Riordan's writing. He is so witty and sarcastic and clever, and I enjoy that. That's one of my favorite kinds of writing styles. He has those fantastic chapter titles that I'm always going on about. Hold on. The first chapter of this book is called I Accidentally Vaporized My Pre-Algebra Teacher. Do you need any other inducement to read this book other than the fact that the chapter titles are that good? Come on, guys. You know you wanted to vaporize your pre-algebra teacher, and your algebra teacher, and your trigonometry teacher, and your geometry teacher. One of my favorite things about Rick Riordan is how he has grown as an author and as a person, and how he just kind of champions for representation for all kinds of people, because this does not have the best representation. We're not going to deny that. But he has gotten so much better and been so intentional with his inclusion of representation in much later books and in other series. So I really, really enjoy Rick Riordan as a writer. I think that he is a really, really awesome person. Can I say anything else without saying really, really? One of my favorite female characters of all time is in this series. She's so smart and witty and clever and always has a plan, and I love her. He has maybe one of the best mentors ever. It's like Dumbledore meets Professor X. He's got that whole like mysterious, I can't really tell you what's going on vibe, but also that really nice like down-to-earth kind of a way that he talks to you and wants you to know as much and be as informed as you can be, as he can make you. I like Chiron. There isn't anything about this series that I don't like. I'm sorry, there isn't. Except that it's not longer. The next book that I finished was A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. I listened to this for a darker shade of read-alongs that is being put on by Common Spins. I will put a link down below to his most recent live show for this book. A Gathering of Shadows is the second book in the Shades of Magic series. Do I need to explain Shades of Magic again? I'm going to explain Shades of Magic again, because when somebody is like, you guys know what this is about because you've been on my channel, it always ticks me off because they always say it right when I have found them. And so I'm like, I don't know what it's about. I just started watching your channel. There are 4 different worlds, and they are all connected by different Londons: Grey London, Red London, White London, and Black London. Our main character is from Red London. He is part of the royal family, but he's also kind of a smuggler between the Londons, and he accidentally smuggles something that he should not smuggle from one of the Londons into the other London, and it causes a whole bunch of problems. He has to team up with a local thief to kind of get rid of the thing that he transported and get it back where it belongs. Listen, A Gathering of Shadows drove me absolutely bonkers the first time I read it, mostly because my faves, again, with the separation, my faves were separated for most of the book. However, the, like, anticipation going through it the second time, because I knew it was going to happen and I knew when they were going to meet back up again, oh, it about killed me, and I had so much fun listening to it. I was just like, oh boy, oh boy. I was losing it constantly while listening to this book. Shades of Magic series has one of my favorite magic systems, because you have that kind of trans-dimensional hopping part of it, plus you have an elemental magic system, and they really take it and they rise it to the next level, because in this particular book, there is what's known as the Essentosh going on, and the Essentosh mean holy games, something like that. And basically it is this contest where the 3 different kingdoms who were at war until recently, they get together every 3 years to have this competition to kind of make sure that everyone is still wanting peace and feeling okay with each other and like bring everybody together. Seeing elemental magic and kind of like this cage fighting atmosphere. That was so much fun. The second part is, listen, if you are into slow burn romance, this has one of the slowest of burns. My book might have a slower burn, but this I just like. If you like slow burn, this is going to give you all of those wonderful slow burny feels that just make you want it to burn. Not as slow. I at some point you're like, it's been burning forever. We need to continue on. But that's what the next book is for, guys. Okay. Like, Victoria Schwab has such beautiful, rich characters, and none of them are perfect. They all have their mistakes that they make. You want to strangle most of them at least once during each book. Multiple times if we're talking about a couple of characters from this book. Specifically one character in specifics. But at the end of the day, you just get so invested in these characters and you love them so much by the end that you just, like, you want them to be your best friends and you love them. When I first read this, it was a 4-star book, as was A Darker Shade of Magic. But, like, my enjoyment was definitely ramped up this time, so it ended up being a 5-star book this time, just to get that out there. If you're hoping for me to say some bad things about books, I don't really do that, but I do have a few things to say about this next book that I'm going to mention, which is Pride and Prejudice and Zombies by Jane Austen and Seth Grahame-Smith. I reread this. This did the opposite of Gathering of Shadows. It did not go up in rating. I was hoping it might, since I was reading it instead of listening to it. But as it turns out, when you're listening to it and less socially aware, it turns out that it goes down. I gave this 1 star. I'm sure it's great for someone who does not like Pride and Prejudice, because basically what it felt like was somebody just chopped Pride and Prejudice up a little bit and threw in some zombie scenes and ball jokes. He made a few plot choices that I thought were interesting, but at the same time drove me nuts. There is only one thing that I really liked about this book. The Bennets are like these badass zombie killers, really, like, they've trained in Japan, done the whole colonial appropriation thing. Basically, the only thing that I felt, I mean, I did like the fact that there were illustrations here. So that is the infamous proposal scene. And I liked how the Collins proposal is tweaked just a little bit, because Elizabeth is this very skilled warrior. When Mr. Bennet is talking about how he would have been very disappointed in her marrying Collins, Seth Grahame-Smith turns it so that his disappointment would have been on, is more about Lizzie, more about, like, losing her, and more about feeling that she has more to offer than Collins deserves, than it is about him hating Collins. So I really liked that was turned and made more about Lizzie in a way than it was about his dislike of Collins. I felt like that was an improvement. I went in not expecting a book that was written by someone who hated Pride and Prejudice, which basically is the impression that I got, that he just thought Pride and Prejudice was boring, and so he threw in some zombies. I would have liked something that delved a little more into the zombie lore, that adapted the story a little bit more to the whole, like, zombie thing. So, yeah. Even though that Pride and Prejudice retelling sucked, I did get to read a really good Pride and Prejudice retelling. And I, of course, am talking about Pride by Ibby Zoloy. Oh, it was so good. Pride is about Zuri Benitez. She has 4 sisters. They all live in a little neighborhood called Bushwick, which is not the best neighborhood. It's a little run down, it's a little broken, but it's their neighborhood. It's where they live, and they're very proud of it. And then this family moves in across the street, the Darcy family, and right away there are sparks, not the good kind of sparks, flying between Zuri and Darius Darcy, the younger of the 2 brothers. And it's quite possibly the Pride and Prejudice retelling that the world has spent 200 some odd years waiting for, because it was so. Listen, alright, the things I loved about this book. There were a few places where I wanted to slap Zuri upside the head a little bit, knock some sense into her, because honestly, girl, oh, do you have to be that difficult? But at the same time, I always understood where she was coming from and why she was kind of being that way. Like, I understood, even though I didn't necessarily agree and thought she was maybe being too hard on some people. But let me tell you, the way Ibby Zoloy remixes Pride and Prejudice is absolutely brilliant. It is one of the most clever retellings I have ever read. She was just so clever with the way she turned things around, with the way she worked in different characters. They don't necessarily fill their exact Pride and Prejudice role, but she adapts them so well to the setting, which is what I wish Seth Grahame-Smith had done with his zombies, but she adapts them so well to the setting that it's just like, who would think of that? Like, how? Like, you're sitting there and you're going, like, listen, if you're a Pride and Prejudice fan, your mind is going to be blown continually. Another thing that I really liked, and this is similar to stuff that I liked from The Wedding Date, is that she was able to put in social justice issues without it seeming like you are being overloaded. Or because Zuri's life versus Darius's life have been so different, you see a lot of friction between her family and his family, or at least between her and his family. And so that opens up a lot of interesting conversations in a way that is very non-confrontational and gets you thinking rather than feeling like you have to defend yourself. The next book I have to talk about is also another mind-opening book, and it's a little more confrontational, I feel. For some, probably it would be harder for some people to swallow, but I do still think it is a very important book to read. And that is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. It is not my first time reading it, and I reread it because I wanted to reread it before the movie came out, and I wanted to reread it with kind of like a little bit of a gap so that when I saw stuff that was different in the movie, I wasn't pitching a fit. So The Hate You Give is about Star Carter, a girl who grew up in Garden Heights. It is a primarily black neighborhood. She is going home from a party with a friend, and he gets pulled over by a white cop. In the course of the stop, the cop ends up shooting him. It's about her dealing with the grieving process, and does she testify against this cop, and like, can there be justice for this boy who was murdered, even though he wasn't doing anything wrong. There are a lot of really good conversations that get started through this book. It takes a movement that I think a lot of people misunderstand, and it gives it a human face. It gives you the thought processes behind it. And it gives you a picture into a life that is very different from the kind of life that you're gonna live if you are living in a white middle class home. It's one of those books that is so good, and it makes you cry, and it makes you like laugh, but it also makes you very angry if you are following any sort of like social justice media. It just makes you angry because you're gonna get some of these references, and it's gonna make you wanna set something on fire. Yeah. I've already mentioned a couple of the reasons that I like this book. One of them is because it starts good conversations. It gives you a real, raw look into the lives of Black people today and the things they have to put up with on a daily basis. It's about a girl who grew up in a Black neighborhood, but because things in the neighborhood are so bad, she's going to a private school like 45 minutes away because her parents are trying to protect her and make sure she has the best education that she can have. It tackles class dynamics, it tackles racial dynamics, it tackles police brutality. It just tackles a lot of stuff that is going on that people need to be aware of and that people need to look at with an open mind and look at and consider, is there a difference in how I think about people or look about people or make assumptions about people simply based on the color of their skin. This would have been a very good book for me if I had been a teen. I wish I'd had this book when I was a teen because I would have spent a lot fewer years encased in my privilege if I had had books like this when I was a teen. And I'm so glad that we have people like Angie Thomas, like Nick Stone, like Justina Ireland, like Evie Zaboy. And this has one of the best family dynamics that I have ever read. Okay, guys? Like, I love the Carter family. They are real, they are raw, they are a mess. But at the end of the day, they love each other, and you can really see that coming through. Yeah, I love how she tackles such like heavy material, but is also able to give you moments of levity, because I think no matter who you are reading this book, you need those moments that you can just kind of laugh at completely benign situations. So I really liked that. 5 out of 5 stars. First time, second time, it's so good. Those are all of the books that I read in the month of September, guys. I'm very happy with the books that I got read and the stuff that I got done, even if it wasn't necessarily everything I would have liked to get done. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button. I would love to see your lovely face here on a regular basis. If you want more of my content, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I am @thewordnerd on both of those. I tweet about books and writing and just lose my crap about all kinds of fun stuff. That is it for now, my friends. I will see you later when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye!